Ahora, Okay, got it. Should I put it? Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, radio listeners, and to those listening on the web. The Gun Crime and Violence Select Committee of the 12th Anguilla House of Assembly is conducting a public inquiry hearing. This inquiry will look into gun crime and gang violence and its associated issues. We started on July 18th and we're going through to July 21st, and the committee will hold a series of public hearings which will cover, among other things, A. Examine the rising incidence of gun crime in Anguilla. B. Undertake a situational analysis of the incidence of gun crime and gang violence in Anguilla. C. Examine the causes of the existing situation as it relates to the rising incidence of gun crime and gang violence. D. Seek to detail the impact of gun crime and gang violence on individuals, families, and the community. E. Promote an understanding of the potential solutions and mitigation methods to the rising incidence of gun crime and gang violence as drawn from international and regional best practices. Examine any matters related to the question at hand. And G. Recommend to the Assembly and those concerned strategies to address the issue. As I said before, we started with our hearings on Tuesday, July 18th. We had one yesterday, Wednesday, July 19th, and we are here again today. And we will have another one, which will be our final session on tomorrow, Friday 21st. The members of the committee are as follows. Honorable Single Island-wide Member, Mr. Kenneth Hodge. Honorable Member for Valley South, Ms. Deanne Kentish Rogers. Honorable Single Island-wide Member, Mr. Jose Vanterpool. Honorable Single Island-wide Member, Mr. Kyle Hodge. Honorable Member for Valley South, Mrs. Shelia Rogers Webster. And assisting the committee, the two special members are Mr. Rudolph Proctor and Mrs. Hyacinth Bradley. My name is Merrick Richardson, and I'm the chair of the committee. We'll now start with a word of prayer.
Our Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you for your goodness. Thank you, O God, for the committee sessions thus far. Lord, as we go throughout this session today, give us wisdom, and thank you for allowing it to be productive. In your precious name, Jesus, amen.
Amen.
Hi, everyone. I would ask you, I will break you sometime in the next 5 minutes or 8 minutes to re-click the link so that you all can come back in, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Proctor. So good afternoon again. With us we have today Mr. Randy Hodge. Mr. Hodge, welcome, and we'll invite you to give your opening remarks.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon to everyone. I am Randy Hodge, victim of gun violence in Angola. And I'm here to share whatever I can to help. You know, my mission being here today is to give insight, you know, to let you guys know what I go through day to day, you know, with what happened to me, you know, some years ago.
Thank you, Mr. Hodge. So we'll start off with our questions now to you, Mr. Hodge, and we'll continue our dialogue. Just be noted to our listening public, we might have to break for a few minutes just to take care of some housekeeping matters. So just be aware of that. We'll let you know when. And I was just advised we'll be breaking now. So just bear with us a few minutes, and we'll be back shortly. Good afternoon again. We apologize for that break in transmission. Um, Mr. Hodge, you're there with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great. We'll now, like I was saying before we took our little short break, we'll now start with our questions. And
Okay.
Mr. Vanderpool will pose the first question to you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Hodge. How are you doing?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
So my first question is, you would have said that a few years ago you would have been a victim of gun violence in Anguilla, and I'll rephrase going forward and use the term survivor, because I prefer to think of you as a survivor than a victim, because I have to be grateful for the fact that you still have life. How long ago was the incident you were involved in? What year?
Well, this happened in 2012, February.
So February of 2012. Before even getting to the current situation of gun crime and violence, for those looking on who may not know who you are or what your story is, briefly, could you tell us a bit about your story and what it is that happened to you?
Okay, my name is Randy Hodge. I used to work in the hotel industry. I worked at Cap Juluka for a number of years. This situation happened to me. I was working at Cap Juluka at that time. And yeah, that's it.
Well, sorry, in terms of when you say the situation, there are persons, many of us, even myself, may not know exactly what happened in February of 2012. So, in
Yes.
other words, what happened that led to you being a victim or a survivor? Tell us what happened that night.
Yes, in 2012 in February, I got shot. I was attending, it had a function at the Carnival Village. And while I was walking away from the village, a car just drove up and opened fire on myself and another person. So that's what caused me to be paralyzed and in a wheelchair today.
I'm very sorry to hear that. The car that would have opened fire on you and this other person, do you believe that you or either this other person were the actual targets?
I believe it was targeted for us. I don't know what the reason for it would have been, but I believe they intended to harm us. Maybe at least one of us, and the other one was there and got injured too. But yeah, that's what I think it was. It was intentional.
What happened to the other person who was with you during the incident?
Okay, so it was a female, my girlfriend at the time, and she got injured too. She received 2 shots. I received four shots across my body. She received 2, one in her side and one in her arm. But I got the worst of it because I ended up in a wheelchair. She's still, walking and able to move around.
Thank you for sharing and for being so open. It must take a certain level of bravery to actually be able to share your story publicly like this, and I'm truly grateful. Please tell us,
Yes.
how has this incident and that night, how has that impacted your life or changed it?
Mr. Vanderpool, this impacted my life greatly in so many ways. I used to be a working man in Anguilla. I taking care of my family. I have a daughter who's 16 now. When this would have happened, she would have been 5 years old, and it changed so much. Every time I want to do something these days, I have to think about how am I gonna get there, if there's access for me to even go in. I used to love going to the beach with my family. I can't even do that like I used to. It's so challenging, Little things, even like using the bathroom is very challenging now. It's not easy. It's not easy.
Thank you for sharing. You would have mentioned that your daughter would have been 5 years old at the time of the incident and she's 16 years old today. How do you think that this incident has impacted her?
My daughter, any child whose parent would end up in a situation like I have would be devastated. I mean, this is your parent who could have hold you up at one point, and then now you can't even do that. I mean, her life has been impacted. I can't provide for her the way I would need to. It's really a difference.
Thank you for sharing. My final question before I take a break from questioning and turn over to my colleagues for a bit is 2012 was a long time ago, about over a decade, in fact. And between 2012 and now, we would have seen a change in our culture as it relates to gun violence, a change that unfortunately seems to be for the worse. What are your views on the changing culture in Anguilla, the incidents taking place between 2012 and now, as well as just in general, your situation, your views as it pertains to gun crime and violence in Anguilla?
Yeah, gun crime. I mean, a lot of the young people tend to be getting involved in things, and it can look like as if the video games that they play in can be influencing them to, become robbers. It's almost like you're looking at something that you're seeing on the internet, when you see it. So I wonder about that. And then another thing is like music that you listen to. A lot of it you hear, the content is like it's negative. And if you keep putting that in your ear, what's gonna happen? You're gonna end up acting out same things that you're hearing. And TV, TV is very, you can be influenced by what you see in movies. Although that stuff isn't real, might be very well going out there and taking on and doing some of the same things that you see. Yeah,
Thank you very much for your answers thus far. I'll turn over to one of my colleagues.
Mr. Hodge, good afternoon. My name is Kenneth Hodge. I've been listening to your story, and I want to go back to 2012 and ask you, what was the level of perhaps support that you would have received back then from the community? I know your family would have rallied behind you, but in terms of the community though, what was the level of support like back then?
Yeah, I can remember. Good afternoon, Mr. Hodge.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Hodge. I can remember immediately after this incident took place, my colleagues and friends at Cap Jaluka really got behind on me in a very big way. They, financially, they donated to me. There was a gospel concert that was geared to raising funds for my medical, and very happy to see that kind of support, to hear about it, because at that time I was fighting for my life, and I heard about the churches that were praying for me so much, and all of that, and it's only the grace of God. It's only the grace of God that kept me alive, and I'm here to speak about this.
So that support would have kept you going during those difficult times.
That's right. That support played a big part in me feeling, I have something to fight for. You have something to. My daughter also flew to I flew to Panama for medical attention, and my daughter came along with my mom and my aunts, and that support. And when you go through something as devastating as I have, all the support that you can get is very helpful.
Okay, before I continue, I think, Deanne, you have your hand raised. Perhaps I can take a break and go to Deanne, come right back to you, Randy.
Okay.
Hi, Mr. Hodge.
Good
Thank
afternoon.
you. Afternoon. Thank you for meeting with the committee. I do have a question for you that I think it could be really helpful for the committee as we try to look into gun crime generally. Based on your experience with this really difficult and challenging incident that has had a remarkable impact on your life, can you describe or give the committee some insight into what could have possibly led to that incident or the motivations behind that incident?
I would like to say I'm not exactly sure what would have led to it, but I would say that because I grew up in the valley area, I feel like it could be that who did this to me, they don't like people who, are from valley. I feel like it kind of have something to do with that. I don't have anything else to point to, because there's an idea that maybe the person that you're involved with could be involved with somebody else. Maybe that could be the reason why it happened. But there's nothing for me to really look at to say that could be the case. So East versus West, that's the only thing that I could think about.
So,
And that's a supplementary. What would have been your experience, or to what extent? Sorry, just working through a technical issue here. What I was asking is, to what extent would you say that East versus West dichotomy, or that tension would have been present in 2012? Do you think it was something that had been quite active during 2012 and the surrounding years, or what was your experience of that particular East versus West tension?
Yes. I'm a bit reluctant to talk about incidents that happened prior to me becoming shot. I'm a bit reluctant to speak about that, but I know of an instance where a young man got shot and killed in the Blum Point area sometime there before this happened to me. And somehow, it's my feeling that incident where that guy got shot and he died could potentially have something to do with why I got shot too. It's like something happened to somebody in my district, I'm gonna come back now and get at somebody else in another area. And I would like to say, just for the record too, myself, I had never been involved in a gang. I had never been a gang member. Now, I'm from an area, but that doesn't mean that you're a part of a gang and you're going to be targeted based on being in this gang. I feel like it just happened to me. It just so happened that it was me there that night, and they just shot at whoever they could have shot at that time, and it was me. It just happened to be me that night.
Okay, just based on what you would have shared just now, that gives an indication that there is some belief that whatever gang activity that may be taking place within a specific context has the possibility of spilling over to uninvolved members of the community. So just general members of the community can be adversely affected incidences of gang-related or location-specific activity. To what extent do you believe that that is true?
Yes. Yes. You don't have to be, you could be an innocent bystander when something happened and become a victim of, you know, let's say a drive-by. You could be somewhere on the side of the street, minding your business, and you become victim. It can happen that way.
Mr. Hodge, I was asking you earlier about the support you would have received back in those years, and you said that there was a lot of persons rallying around you. Over the years, fast forward into 2023, we've had a lot of instances of gun violence over those years. Some young people have lost their lives. Quite a few have been injured. Is it your view that we are becoming now immune to it? We are becoming desensitized to it? Is it just another occurrence? I mean, you tend to see the pictures splashed all over social media. Are we becoming immune as a community to these acts of violence?
Minister Hodge, this is something that I often wonder in my mind, you know, at the same time, because it had a time when Anguilla wasn't so full of gun violence and gun-related incidents. To me, it just spring up out of nowhere, and it just been continuing, you know. And I feel like you see it so much on the news. You see it so much. They're everywhere in media. So it's like it becoming a norm, it becoming normal to see that kind of thing happening and people getting involved in it. So I feel like you're right in the question that you asked, the way you formulated it. It seems like it's becoming a normal thing for people. And it's very sad. If you're gonna be normal to just kill somebody, that's sad. We really need Christ to come in and help us.
Hey, good afternoon, Mr. Hodge. How you doing? This is Kyle. Clearly, right, there are no winners in gun violence, especially now when it appears that some of it is revenge. How do you think we can put an end to this back and forth? Do you think that we need more involvement from the communities? How can the police assist our communities? What would you advise us as a committee to put an end to this back and forth? Because today for me, tomorrow for you, this tit for tat cannot work. There are no winners.
Yeah, Mr. Hodge, thanks for that question, Kyle. That's a good question, and I would say we need more community. We need more togetherness. We need love. We need love, a lot of love to combat violence, combat this negative, this back and forth. Why do we have to do this? Anguilla's a small place. Everybody connected in some way. Sometimes when we look at it, who we shooting at is relative. So we need to get back to our community. We need to get back to being our brother's keeper. We need to look out for each other, and maybe that might help us to not have to shoot each other, kill each other. That's
And if I could ask a direct question, right? Was justice served in your situation?
Justice was not solved in my situation because to this day, I don't know who did what happened to me. I don't know who did it. The justice system, the police collecting evidence. I was failed. because I don't know who did it.
Do you think there's a lack of trust in the system, a lack of trust between the community and the Royal Anguilla Police Force?
I would say yes, because sometimes when you know something and you wanna give out that information that you know, sometimes it could be a problem for a person to do that, because when you give out the information, then you yourself could be potentially a target for sharing that. You know, how can you share information without people knowing that you're the one who did that? And we've seen situations like that unfold right here in Angola before, and we need to address that aspect of it. That way people ain't gonna come out and say, "Oh, I saw."
Ms. Kentish Rogers, I saw you had your hand up on the screen. You can go ahead and ask your question.
Actually, I was going to ask a follow-up to that question, but I think I want to hold it until two further questions are asked, because I think it flows from those questions.
Right. So, Mr. Hodge, young people are the major ones that are involved in these incidents. And you have said, and it's been raised here this afternoon, it could be situations of revenge or other means. My question to you, do you get a sense that some of this is due to young people maybe fearing for their lives, perhaps maybe do it to you before you do it to me, that sort of scenario? What are your thoughts on the environment that young people find themselves in, and perhaps they feel the need to arm themselves? Your thoughts?
Okay, to that question, I would say revenge. I feel like sometimes you might think you need to get a gun to protect yourself in case somebody come to do something. But having a gun isn't a wise thing, because just having it, sometimes you can be just tempted to use it, like it isn't a good thing to do. And I feel like maybe that's what's happening. Like it's there, so you just take it up and go ahead and use it, and I think maybe what we should think about doing is making the consequences greater if you become caught with a weapon. Try to deter young whoever from even having a firearm, hit it. Make the consequences greater so that you wouldn't even think about going and get it. Because if you ever get caught with it, then you'll have to go away for some time, for a long time.
Mr. Hodge, as a member of the community, because we had some folks in, we had the Comptroller of Customs in earlier. As a regular citizen of Anguilla, do you feel that guns are too easily accessible to persons, illegal for your arms?
Yeah, Anguilla, guns getting into Anguilla quite easy. A lot of the ways that they get here, I don't even think we are looking at, at this moment, with activities that's happening in Anguilla, boats coming into Anguilla, poker runs around the island, These are some events that could potential, cause the guns to get to Anguilla.
Good afternoon, Mr. Hodge. I am Rudolph Proctor. I just have a question to ask you in relation to what you said about justice, that you haven't had justice in your case, and I think there are many other cases where people feel the same way. How do you think law enforcement could bridge the gap with the community in relation to providing evidence in a timely manner or information to be able to pursue some of the cases like yours? In order for a successful prosecution, you would need evidence and you would need it presented before a court. But in our community, and I'm sure you're aware of this, there is a great reluctance on the part of the community to come forward. Do you have any suggestions on how we could bridge that gap?
Yeah, I'm not sure what can be done to get people to come forward and say what they are or what they know. I'm not sure. But I think in terms of the policing, the force, the officers probably, they have to be, just continue at the case. Don't just forget about the case. Just continue. Try to look into it more. Just go as far as you need to go find out what happened. And that could be all it needs to be done.
Yes, I understand that. You know, it is sometimes having worked in law enforcement for some time and have experienced this up close and personal. There are times when, as police officers, we come into contact with people who has that information, and they can provide that information. Do you think that it's a fear factor, or it's just that they don't trust the law enforcement?
I think it's the fear factor that somebody will always be out there trying to come back at you for speaking, you know. I think we had a case like that here in Anguilla before, where someone was a witness to something and they were targeted. So that in itself is like to put fear in people, to make you not want to come forward, to make you feel a threat to your life. But we have to build trust with the community, you know, as officers, you know. Just go there and speak with people. Witness protection, even that is very important.
Additionally, from your point as a victim, and I know a colleague, Jose, said a survivor of violent crime, firearm crime, if you were to speak directly to those youngsters who are arming themselves and settling matters with firearms, what would it be?
I would say, don't go down that road. I mean, you got to take a life. You think about your salvation at the end of your life. You know, you have to ask for forgiveness for all that, those wrong things that you do. It's not only affected me; it affects a wide range of people in my life, my family, my daughter. Think about everybody. Just don't think about, oh, I'm gonna take up a gun and go and do something. You have to think about how much people is gonna be affected by this crime.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Kentish Rogers, I see you have your hand up again.
Sorry about that. Mr. Hodge, just another question for you related to why do you think people turn to crime based on your experience? I know it's difficult to ask you to swap shoes of someone who has caused you so much pain and so much harm, but why do you think they would even get to the point of needing to, even if it's defending turf or retaliating, why do you think that there was such an impetus to turn to crime?
I would say people just develop a hatred for somebody to a level where you have to kill somebody to shoot at somebody. I mean, that attempt my life was to kill me. It wasn't for me to survive. I just happened to survive, praise the Lord. But it's a hatred, like they had to have a hatred in their heart for a person to go and do something like that. It's nothing else that it can be but hatred. You know? And I find too a lot that people who are into drugs and maybe using substances that can lead to them just doing a host of crimes.
Okay, good afternoon, Randy. How are you?
Good afternoon. I'm
Mrs. Bradley?
trying my best.
Yes.
Mrs. Bradley, just give us 2 minutes. Some technical issues again. Yeah. Oh, sorry. You guys will need to re-click your link. So just do that now. Okay. We just need for him to re-click the link and we'll be right back, but just stay with us. We're back. Mrs. Bradley, you are about to ask a question. You can go right ahead with your question.
Yes, good afternoon again. Good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon, Randy.
Good afternoon.
Hi. Yes, I have two questions for you. Following up from Minister Kentish Rogers' question, on behalf of the committee, do you think we see that young persons turn to crime, gun crime, to I guess, bring across a message, be it in retaliation or in response to something they possibly think might be an unjust or whatever it is. Do you think if better avenues or opportunities are provided for our young person, we'll have less of an issue? And when I'm talking about better, more avenues and opportunities, in terms for them to engage in dialogue on issues, would you think they would have a less interest or urgency to turn to the gun violence as a response to the issue?
Well, I'll say we need to see a lot more community activity for young people. We need to see a lot more that happening here in Anguilla. I mean, and I think it could curb the gun crime problem that we're having. I think it will get everybody to see each other, to know each other, to once you wouldn't want to fight somebody who you know and who you build a connection with. You wouldn't want to do that. So the more community involvement that young people have with each other, the more activities that they can get together, I think that'll help.
In so a direct follow-up from that question, Randy, based on your response, we've seen evidence of young persons, friends in primary school, friends in their sports club and different organization, but then to resolve the issue, they turn to the gun crime. There's something that we're missing, and from your experience probably and your engagement and discussion with others, I'm not sure if you've ever had that discussion where we would ask why a gun crime when you were just friends just yesterday. Why is that the response? Why do you think that's the response? Is it that it's easily accessible to, or what's your views on that?
I would say the Bible says, train up a child in the way they should grow, and when they are old, they should not depart. If children from young, you train a child and you teach them the right ways of life, I don't think we'll be having these issues that we're having today. So a lot of times, children are neglected in the homes. Parents are not around, to teach their children. And I strongly believe that could be why, young people go down these roads. The gang leader, the person who on the corner selling drugs, that might be a close friend to somebody who's young and just looking for love and a place for attention, seeking attention. So you could find it on the street corner somewhere. So I think that could be a part of it too, a part of the problem. The parents, they're not present.
Thanks for your response. And my final question to you, Randy, a question was asked to you earlier about community not necessarily responding or providing the support in terms of getting evidence. Do you think that the community is adequately aware of their responsibility, not necessarily solely to respond by providing evidence and say what you know when a crime occurs, but do you think our community fully understands and embraces that they themselves too, even if they may not necessarily be a direct survivor or some sort of victim, do you think they understand their responsibility in that whole fight against crime and violence and the promotion of a more peaceful Anguilla?
Maybe they don't, because when something like this happens, the community is always called on to help us finance the bill. So So crime is happening. Somebody gonna go and take up a gun and shoot somebody, and then the first thing we're gonna see after that happen is, please help, donate to the cause, and we always see that right after something like this happens. So it affects everybody. The whole community suffers. The government suffers. Everybody's suffering, and we need to find ways to get.
Thanks, Randy.
You're
Mr.
welcome.
Hodge. So, earlier in your response to Mr. Proctor, I would have listened to what you would have told young or advised young persons who might want to resort to picking up a gun to resolve conflict. Listening to your response there and considering the fact that in your case justice was denied, you still don't know who did it. My question to you therefore is twofold. If there are persons listening who are withholding information that could assist with your case, that could help bring justice about to you, what would you tell them? That's the first part. The second part is, if the perpetrators who did this crime, who has led to you where you are, the shooters in this instance, are listening, what would you tell them?
Well, I really pray for the person who did this to me, that they would find it in them hard to come forward and say something, You living with guilt. You live with that guilt in your heart all this time. And knowing that you did something to somebody who won't deserve that, didn't do you anything. I would say, come forward. Come forward. Get it off your chest. And God be with you. And to the community now, to persons who know something out there that could potentially solve a crime. I mean, if it were you in this situation, you probably would want somebody else to come out and say something. So just put yourself in that person's situation, and you'd want somebody to come forward, so you should come forward too.
Thank you. What would it mean for you if someone were to come forward and apologize for what they had done to you? Having heard what you just said and they come forward and apologize, what would that mean for you?
That would mean the world. I mean, it's like something happens to you and you don't really get the closure for it. So it's so much uncertainty. I think that would do that for me. I would get and put an end to that in my mind.
Thank you. And once again, I want to thank you for not only opening up yourself to the committee, but opening up your lives to the whole of Anguilla and everyone watching. It's not an easy thing to do, but hopefully will go a long way in terms of influencing the community to the gravity of the situation. My final question for you is, I would have asked earlier about the impact towards you, about the impact towards your daughter, but you would have mentioned at one point that it also has an impact for your family, but we didn't go into detail about that. Could you please tell us about how this situation and how the changes in your life have broadly impacted your family?
I mean, this would impact my family financially, of course. A lot of the funding, my income that I get has to go into, continuously buying supplies related to this, my personal needs. So I wouldn't be able to support my daughter how I would like to. I wouldn't be able to take care of my household the way I would like to. And it's just difficult.
Thank you very much for your candor. I'll turn over to another member of the committee.
Yeah, Mr. Hodge. In my previous life as a civil servant, I have had on more than one occasion had the opportunity to visit His Majesty's prison now. And, we walked around the various cell blocks. The point I want to make is I have tried to rationalize what is the face of someone who takes another life. What does it look like, And when you actually see these persons, sometimes it is just maybe a moment of indiscretion, a fatal mistake that caused them to do the actions that would forever change their lives. And in some of our previous interactions with guests on this committee, we thought about the influence of the gang providing the support structure, the father figure that wasn't there, filling a role that maybe parents are out at work and they are just at home. I'm kind of being long-winded to try to paint a picture that, to me as a community, we are not doing enough to provide those support structures. A lot of the times the father figures are absent, so there's no one to emulate. And I dare say a lot of children grow up playing a lot of these violent Xbox and whatever the latest things are. So my question to you, you spoke earlier about increasing the penalties, but what would be your thoughts on maybe a more involved presence of community, of groups, of perhaps more like men's groups getting involved in the community and providing role models for our young men in particular?
Yeah, that question. The idea is a very good idea. Mentors. Not every household will have, let's say, both parents present. And in situations like that, if it had a mentorship, a group that you could reach out to and get this mentor for your child, that'd be very good. I think that would help. I think parents would be very glad for something like that, to know that you have help in the community, that you can reach out to get help for your children. Something like that it can go a long way in our community, in our society.
Yeah, Mr. Hodge, you several times throughout your presentations, you seem to be a very spiritual person from your references throughout your presentation this afternoon. I want to ask you perhaps a difficult question. Are our churches in Anguilla doing enough to work with our social partners in combating the issues of gun violence among our young people?
I would say more can be done. More can be done. Because we don't really see, the churches are there, but we don't really see the impact on the church helping a family in need. We don't really see that. How do we know that that's happening? Things should be in place that you would know, okay, the church is involved, helping the community, helping the young people in some way. So that's, the church needs to step up, I would say.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Hodge, earlier in your presentation to one of Mr. Vanderpool's questions, you were talking about your difficulties even in getting around. From your position as a survivor of a gun crime, do you think Anguilla have enough resources to deal with persons, especially those who are wheelchair bound?
Can you repeat that question? I think you're breaking up a bit.
Okay. Well, the gist of the question is, do you think Anguilla have enough resources to deal with wheelchair bound persons?
I would say no to that question. Like in terms of even like a wheelchair service, a wheelchair vehicle, there's nothing like that that I can, call and get around by. I remember the Red Cross used to have one, but I don't even think they still have it.
Another question, Mr. Hodge. Throughout your presentation, quite a few times you mentioned love. And interestingly, we had a conversation with some young people some time back, and they also spoke about the country needing love. How do we get to spread this love, though? How do we get to spread this love to the ones who really need it?
How do we get love? Love is caring. Love is support. Love is being there for somebody. And ultimately, we have to call on God for that love. He's the source of our love. Is God. So we have to call on God. It's God who's gonna take us through and bring us through this dark time.
Mr. Hodge, I want to ask you another question.
Somebody.
We've had some witnesses that appear before this committee that shared some information with us. And one of the witnesses yesterday said that 50% of the population at His Majesty's prison are in there for gun crime. What would be some of the approaches that you would recommend to us as a committee or to the country on a whole that should be implemented to reduce gun violence or gun crime in this island? Because there are things that have been tried. Stiffer penalties, stiffer sentences, gun buybacks, and a whole host of others. But it seems like some of these things are not working, even outside of Anguilla. So I would like to know from you, what do you think would be some of the approaches that could be implemented here that would sort of reduce some of the crime, the gun violence?
Okay, sometimes there are instances here in Anguilla that we know about where parents, they're afraid of their children. You bring a child in this world, the child living in your house, but you can't go in that child's room. Something about that picture isn't really right. No child of mine should have the power to tell me that I can't come in a bedroom that I'm responsible for put over the shelter over your head. That shouldn't happen. That shouldn't happen.
I hold a belief from a very long time that parenting throughout the entire landscape of Anguilla seems to have been outsourced as far as some of these youngsters are concerned, either to the police, the school system, the probation system, and the prison system. And that parents have somehow lost their way with some of these children in terms of the care, the protection, and the direction in which these children are going. As a victim of crime, of gun violence in particular, what would you say to some of these parents that have fallen by the way? Because in some interviews, children give the impression that parents are not at home, parents are trying to earn the extra dollar. So it gives the children enough time to engage in other things, other illicit behaviors, which leads to gun violence and other crimes. What would you say to those parents?
I know without a shadow of a doubt that the parents not being physically present is what causing this problem of the children going down that dark road of, getting involved in crime and doing all kind of. It's like if your parent ain't really checking for you, you just get a don't care-ish kind of mindset. So you'd most likely go and do something, crime related, because you don't care. You don't care now. I would say to those parents, get some heart, get some heart. If your child, this is a child that you brought into this world, there's no way that child should be controlling your life. I mean, come up, go and speak to your children, try to get them in line. This is a child that you bring in the world.
You mentioned earlier in your opening presentation about the East-West culture that you believe led to you being shot and wounded. How would you think we would be able to bridge that gap, to close that East-West thing and make it one Anguilla? Because if East can go West and West can go East, it would seem like we would be having a problem for a very long time. What would you suggest a way forward that we can bridge that gap in making East and West understand that this is one Anguilla?
Well, even with politics, in the parties, you have this team, and then you have that team. So that in itself is like division, like an East party and like a West party. So I don't know, I really don't understand how we're gonna get away from this division. Maybe we need to have one united, party running Anguilla. That way we can unite the whole Anguilla, no East, no West. Even in the bands, you have the East, you have the West. You have Panther Voids, you have Exodus. You have fans for that side, fans on that side. So I don't know, the division, I don't know how we're going to get it together.
The reason why I focus on that, Mr. Hodge, is that many of our youngsters from the East are employed in the West. And it would provide a difficulty for them if we continue with this East-West situation, because most of the economic activity is in what we call the West, the end of the island. So there would need to be some sort of approach to bridging a gap so that those youngsters who live in the West and those youngsters who live in the East are able to transmit throughout Anguilla without any difficulties. And that don't seem like be the case as we speak. The other question I would like to pose to you is that since 2012, when you were injured, it would seem that the level of criminality as far as gun violence is concerned has increased and is causing concern, even more concern now than back in 2012. But the other scary thing about it is that the ages of the youngsters who are possessing the guns are getting younger. What do you think is influencing that?
Well, I would say that I guess if you're bored and you got nothing to do, picking up a gun would be something to go and do, I guess. I don't know, we need more things in Anguilla to do, keep our minds occupied, entertainment, sports, that might help.
Thank you.
Mr. Hodge, this has
Still
been
here.
still here. This has been a really truly fruit-bearing afternoon. We just have one more question, then we'll ask you to give some closing remarks.
Hi, Mr. Hodge. My final question is, and I know it's been quite some time that has passed since 2012, so maybe you're not even associated with it and you may not know. But till this day, we still hear about the East versus West divide. In fact, yesterday when we heard from the acting superintendent of prison, she mentioned that the prison population generally has to be split between East versus West. That incident that took place in 2012, you'd have indicated that you felt it was a retaliation to what took place in Blowing Point, and it was just any valid person that they were after. My question to you is, where we are today, is it still a case where we are retaliating from issues of the past and that's just being passed down? Is it a case where it's just tit for tat, you respond and I respond, or has this grown into something new, something that it's transformed, but somehow it's still East versus West?
Okay, your question ain't coming through too clear. I think keep breaking up.
Sorry, I'll repeat. Can you hear me?
I hear you now, but while you're speaking, it's breaking up in between.
Okay, so I'll speak a bit slower, but if you need me to repeat again, just say, and that's no problem. In 2012, the issue was East versus West, and it was due to retaliation to the situation that, well, you believe to be the situation that took place in Blowing Point. We are here 10 years later, and we're still hearing about East versus West, so much so that the prison has to split the population of inmates from East versus West to avoid conflict. My question to you is, the East versus West conflict that we see today, do you think that it's the same conflict, the same issues as back in 2012 when your incident took place? Is it a case that it moves on, but it's still tit for tat, East do this, then West do this, so then East retaliates and it goes on in an ongoing cycle? Have the issues evolved to something else, something completely different in these times, but somehow it still shows up as East versus West?
I think it's still related to the East-West. I think it's still related to that. Some of it might not be solely about that. I think a lot of it has to do with, okay, I from here, you from here. You shouldn't be here. I think it's still related to that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hey, Mr. Hodge, I really don't have a question. I really just wanted to commend you for your positive attitude that you have displayed, and I've seen you around, and you have generally been very upbeat. I think you even took up music at some point as well. So I just want to commend you for your generally very positive attitude, and I think your experience can be an encouragement for others, that adversity doesn't have to keep you down, you can move on up. So I just wanted to share those brief words of encouragement with you.
Thank you so much. I try to keep myself up, you know, there's no sense in me just being in a stupor all the time. So I just try to keep myself, you know, so I can move on with my life. Me and mine.
Mr. Hodge, at this time we'll give you a chance to make any closing remarks you'd like to make.
Yeah, I would just like to say to anybody out there who's listening, violence is not the answer. It shouldn't be the go-to thing that you do, you know, to take up a gun and go at someone. That should never be the way you solve a problem, you know. Try to help people. Try to be more loving and kind to people. And I just want to thank everyone that's here in this room, in this meeting today, for your efforts, you know, to try to curb violence in Anguilla. We need a lot of help. We need a lot of help. God bless you all.
Mr. Hodge, we the committee, and I think...
Thank you, Mr. Hodge.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Randy.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Randy.
Thank you, Randy. Thank you.
Truly appreciate your openness and your honesty. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Well, Mr. Hart, you heard from the committee, and I can show you can hear the gratitude in your voice. We really want to thank you for first appearing before the committee. We also want to thank you for your openness and how truthful you answer the questions. Some questions that might be a little painful for some persons, but you were able to give us a view of the other side of what gun crime and gun violence can do to a person. So for that, Mr. Hodge, we really, really thank you, and we really appreciate you appearing before this committee. We are now closing off our session for today. We will be back here tomorrow at 10 a.m., so we look forward to everyone who's listening in to join us tomorrow, 10 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you.